Blog Talk Radio.
Thank you. County 23, I'll give you a corrected address, but we do have a fire in a one-story ordinary. Looks like it's about 40 by 120, 125. We'll get to traffic control. Squad 5, Squad 5. Angle to 273, 273. Angle Battalion 18, 18th Battalion. With a 273, 273.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Fire Engineering Talk Radio and tonight's installment of the Professional Volunteer Fire Department. I'm your host, Tom Merrill, and it's good to have you along tonight. Today is Tuesday, April 16th, 2018. The year is flying by. I can't believe we're already halfway through the month of April, and we're going to cover a lot of miscellaneous housekeeping items tonight. I've been collecting a lot of notes and information as it applies to our volunteer fire service, just hanging on to them for when the time might be appropriate to talk about during the show. Sometimes I save the notes to add to my presentation, and sometimes also I like to hang on to them to ask for feedback from you all out there, because I don't have all the answers. I'm not an expert when it comes to some of these subjects, but I hang on to them and like to bring them up from time to time, whether on the show or when I'm out doing a presentation or anytime I'm out with the great fire service people out there. I like to go over some of these ideas and things that are out there. And tonight we're going to cover a lot of housekeeping items because there's so much going on. And if you would like to call in and discuss anything on your mind or regarding some of the things I'm going to bring up tonight or anything going on in your neck of the woods regarding our volunteer fire service, please feel free. The number to call, and I'll give it several times during the course of the evening, is 760-454-8852. And I would love to hear from you out there. And I know a lot of people listen to these later on when we're not live, and I understand that. But if you happen to be listening and have something you want to add to what I bring up tonight to discuss or anything on your mind, please feel free to do so at 1-760-454-8852. Excuse me. So we're gearing up for another great FDIC. I am so excited because it is 1 week away. In 1 week, we will be in Indianapolis, starting off the great FDIC. I've been putting the finishing touches on my presentation, the Professional Volunteer Fire Department, which I will be presenting as a 4-hour workshop next Tuesday, the 24th, from 8 a.m. till noon. I'll be over in rooms 107 and 108. If any of you are out there, I would love to see you there in the class. I know there's a lot of great classes to choose from. And I know, you probably have too many to choose from. So if you've picked other classes that you're going to attend, that's great. I hope I can still meet up with you. Maybe I'll see you in some of the classes I'm taking. Maybe I'll see you out at some of the networking events or any of the other great activities going on there at FDIC. And if I do cross paths, please feel free to introduce yourself to me. I can tell you I'll be the short one, but feel free to say hi and talk to me, and would just love to get to meet even more great firefighters that are out there, because, boy, we have so much fun getting together and talking about things, don't we? This is my 5th year presenting the Professional Volunteer Fire Department. It may actually be my 20 or 21st year attending, maybe even more. I really haven't added it up. I started going in the 90s, took some time off when we have 4 children, so I did take some time off when the children were really young, but I've been going just about every year now for, at least 12 in a row now. So all total, I bet you it's got to be approaching 20 FDICs, and you never don't look forward to going. It just reinvigorates you, re-excites you for the fire service, and I'm as excited to go today as I was when I first went 15 or 20 years ago. So I've been working hard on my presentation, even though it is the 5th year of presenting it. I always change it up a little bit. It's always a little different to keep it fresh, but also because there's so much going on in the fire service, so many new ideas to add to it about what it takes to be professional, and great examples out there of what is and isn't professional. And people bring me ideas too about, hey, did you ever think of this, or my department does that. So always keeping my presentation fresh and trying to make sure when the people leave after the 4-hour class that they have something to take home to their department. And a lot of times I have things I can take home as well because people come up to me during the break or after the class and share things with me, or if I see them out at night, they'll share things with me that maybe I didn't think of or point out to me. That's just great information to add. So again, next Tuesday from 8 a.m. till noon in rooms 107 and 108, I'll be presenting the Professional Volunteer Fire Department. Would love to see you there. So here we are, mid-April. I know the calendar says it's mid-April. It might say that it's springtime, but holy smokes, in our area it has been anything but. And I think a lot of the Great Lakes region is suffering with us, right? Heck, tonight they were calling for 2 to 3 inches of rain here over the next day or two, but it's snowing out right now. I think it got cold enough that the forecasted rain has turned to snow, and it's winter wonderland out in my area here in western New York, just outside of Buffalo. We have yet to experience any sign of spring, and so we had our installation banquet this past Saturday, a couple nights ago, at a beautiful venue in downtown Buffalo, which, by the way, I'm going to speak proudly of Buffalo. Buffalo is rebounding like I've never seen. I've mentioned this before. I'm 55 years old. My whole life has been bad news for Buffalo with plant closings, plants that used to employ thousands upon thousands of people shutting down during the course of the 70s, 80s, 90s, and even into the 2000s, just plant closing after plant closing, business shutting down, and lots of major corporations. Heck, National Gypsum used to be based in western New York. They were one of the first to leave in the 70s, and so many followed since then. But I'm honest to gosh, in my lifetime, it's the best I've ever seen it. Our downtown is totally coming to life. It's revitalized, and children today, my children who are in their early 20s, late teens, they want nothing more than to move downtown and be in some of the great loft apartments that they've made out of old industrial buildings. It's just an exciting time in Buffalo and western New York area. So for our installation banquet this year, we went to a beautiful venue in downtown Buffalo. It's a hotel that's been restored, called the Hotel Lafayette. Just an absolutely beautiful, beautiful venue. And I can remember back in October when the committee, and I'm on the committee for the installation, we went to plan the banquet, and we remember talking about how our installation was going to be on April 14th, and in October, November, when we were down there, the weather was turning, it was getting cold, and we just pictured middle of April, it's going to be beautiful spring weather. We got a beautiful courtyard there that we line up for an inspection, we can line up for our inspection outside, members can go outside after dinner and relax outside, maybe some of them enjoy a cigar or just have a beverage out there, enjoying a beautiful spring night. Yeah. Then the ice storm struck. Just after guests arrived. You couldn't have timed it any better. Actually, the timing was good because it did allow everyone to get to the venue, and very few people didn't show up because of the forecasted ice storm. They were forecasting a half-inch to three-quarters inch of ice, and we did get quite a bit of ice. The road conditions deteriorated. The ice turned to snow and sleet, and it was just a nasty, nasty night. But did it dampen our spirits? Heck no. People hung out. After the installation portion was done, I was afraid it would turn into a ghost town. It did not. People stayed and celebrated and enjoyed the brotherhood and the sisterhood of the fire service. And even driving home later that night, a bunch of us stayed in downtown Buffalo till later in the evening, going to different venues in downtown Buffalo. Drive home was not bad at all due to the road crews being out, and it was a tribute to the resiliency, actually, of all western New York people, because it didn't dampen our spirits, and it did not harm our installation banquet one bit. We had a time, and this was our department's 102nd Chiefs Installation Banquet. And yeah, I know it's April, and people do ask me quite often, why is Snyder doing their installation banquet in April? Because so many of them seem to be back in January, February, because so many chief officers are elected in December. And that's true, but Snyder's a fire district, and fire districts in New York State anyway, which are a political subdivision, a little different than some of the other department organizations that there are, but fire districts, the way I understand it, and I know from reading our minutes from years and years ago, it used to be state law for whatever reason that fire districts elected their chief officers in April. Actually, they don't even elect them. The fire departments nominate chief officers, forward those nominations to the Board of Fire Commissioners for final approval, which is usually done the same night, and there's usually never, ever, at least in our company anyway, there never has been a disputed fire chief nominated that the Board of Fire Commissioners didn't approve. So that's how it's done in our area. The fire district approves the chief officer nominations, and then the installation banquet would be shortly after. So it used to be state law. We did that in April. I know that law changed a while ago, many years ago, and some departments that were districts or are districts, they then changed their chief elections to maybe December, and now their banquets have moved back to the January, February time frame. We just elected to keep ours in April. We go to a lot of neighboring departments' installations, so we would have been at the bottom of the pecking order anyway if we changed, and we would have been doing it in late March anyway. So we kind of just kept it. We kept it where it is. It's worked out fine for us. And that's why, if anybody wonders, yes, and I know there's a lot of departments throughout New York State and maybe in your area as well that still have the Chief's installation banquet in April. And I believe that used to be the law. I believe it is no longer. If anybody knows for sure, give us a call, please, or email me. But again, the number is 760-454-8852, and you can reach out to me on email. Please give my professional volunteer fire department Facebook page a look and a like. You can contact me that way as well. My email, tamerrill63@AOL.com. Love to hear from you. Love to hear from you. So the installation banquet, a couple takeaways from that. I love the banquet. I think installation banquets are a great night. And as I said, it's a great way to celebrate the brotherhood and the sisterhood and the camaraderie that exists or definitely should exist within our volunteer fire departments and with the many invited guests from near and far who may come to the banquet. It's a great night for that. And a couple things, takeaways from installation banquets. Everybody deserves a night off. So we arrange in our area for call coverage and give our firefighters the evening off. Might not be possible in all areas due to maybe having huge jurisdictions that they cover, but if there's a way to do it, I highly recommend it, that your firefighters can get a night off to enjoy, like I said, the camaraderie. They can enjoy a social atmosphere without having to worry about responding to calls for a number of hours. In our area, it's not uncommon to go out of service at maybe 1,600 or 1,700 hours and return to service the next morning around 0800 hours. Gives everyone a good period of time off to enjoy the festivities and not have to worry about going back on duty at midnight or having to go right from the party maybe even to a call. I understand it's not always possible. Some departments bring in coverage. Some fire departments actually stand by at their neighboring fire departments' quarters, which is great. And the host department might leave some pizza or some food for them, and that can be a good time too. We did that years ago here. We've now been responding from our own firehouses, although some still have the standby coverage, and it works out great. Firefighters get to check out their neighboring firehouse and their equipment, and of course they reciprocate then when the time comes for their installation banquet. So it works out good. But any way possible, I think it's a good idea to take the night off and to arrange for coverage, because again, it's easy to justify. I know we're volunteers. I know our public needs us to be there. We're not having people show up to an emergency. We are arranging coverage for that emergency, and in most cases, it works out really well. And so, if possible, arrange for it. And these banquets and parties, great way to honor the chiefs and the officers. If it's a combined banquet where we're installing a bunch of officers, also a great chance for family members to have fun together. You know what else can happen? New members can meet other new members, family members as well, which brings up another point I want to make, because I was noticing this at our banquet with a few of our new members. It's important to reach out to new members. They're especially if they've only joined a few months ago. They might be a little intimidated, very shy, might not know many of the families that have been there a long time, might not know many of the members. So if you're a a veteran member, if you're a leader in your department, an officer, kind of keep that in mind that, hey, we've got a few new members here. Oh, there they are with their husband or their wife or their boyfriend or girlfriend. Go over and introduce yourself to them. Make them feel at home. If you have seating charts, maybe seat them with some social and remember that they're so new, they may not know who to sign up with, so kind of help them out, figure out, hey, I know you don't know any of these people. Let's figure out where we can seat you. Just a great way, again, to make somebody feel welcome in your department and make them acclimate maybe a little bit better. And also for their family member, whoever they bring with them as their guest, to start meeting other family members as well. Don't leave them off in a corner by themselves, shy and intimidated and maybe reluctant to come out and start meeting people, because people sometimes just need a little bit of a nudge, don't you think? And I think it's something just to keep in the back of your mind when you see these new people and help them get acclimated to your volunteer fire department. I really don't think that's a hard thing to do. I don't think it's a bad thing to do, and I highly encourage it, because part of the inboarding process or onboarding process in the volunteer firehouse is helping the new member get off to a successful start by introducing them to membership. You introduce yourself to them. You talk about where they come from and their family, and then you get to know their family as well, because then and banquets are a great way to do that if they happen to be joining in the time period around the banquet. Way to do it. And, of course, these banquets are a great way to celebrate your milestones for your members. Maybe you can even have a firefighter of the year in recognition of some outstanding service. Most people do that. A lot of the firefighter of the year and awards are named after former contributors. However, one thing I know is controversial, and we don't do it in my department. Again, would love to hear pros and cons, would love to hear your thoughts on this. A lot of departments do top 10 awards, and I can see the benefit of it. A long time ago, as a young officer, I noticed my department didn't, and I asked a senior chief at the time, hey, why doesn't Snyder do top 10 awards? And the answer the chief gave me at the time, and this is 30 years ago or so, sticks with me today, and it's still the way we are. The chief said, I don't want a member whose spouse is working or is going to school and working full-time trying to support his family to feel any less important than maybe the firefighter who is retired or living home or just for whatever reason has more of an opportunity to answer more calls. And the more I thought about it, I saw a lot of top 10 award recipients were retirees, were people that worked for themselves. Maybe it was a student who was around a lot because they weren't working full-time yet. Not to take anything away from them at all. That is admirable, and they are to be commended, but we didn't want people to feel any less important if they were struggling to make the minimum call volume because they were going to school and working full-time, or they had a demanding job that they just couldn't leave. You know, you get the idea, right? So, again, pros and cons with them. The only thing I can say is if you do it, just do it fair and equitably. If anyone has any feedback on that, again, reach out to me. Let me know your thoughts on that. Do they serve as motivators? Sometimes I think they can cause controversy too for the reasons I just outlined. Not taking away from anybody's contributions. I think there's other ways to recognize them. Just our thoughts and some of the feedback I've gotten is pros and cons with that, and I think that needs to be recognized. And other little tidbits of installation etiquette, I guess. Please remember to extend courtesies to those making comments. Sometimes politicians or other members from other companies will come up and make a few comments, especially if there's an anniversary involved or celebrating so many years of service. And we're all having fun, having a good time. Hopefully that part of the installation doesn't drag on too long, and people can hopefully extend the courtesy of sitting back and listening and refraining from noisy comments or not paying attention to what the speaker's saying, because I think you'd agree, it's cliche, but it's unprofessional. It's very unprofessional. So please remember to extend courtesies to those making comments. And More installation etiquette. Remember that you're wearing your uniform in most cases. Many departments have Class A uniforms, or they have patches on their suits that identify them as firefighters. And sometimes these installation banquets aren't always at the firehouse. They might be out in a public area, such as ours was last week. So we try to remind our members, and it's good that senior members and officers remind members. And again, reminder for new members that we just need to be careful with how we're acting, how we're behaving. Are we doing things appropriately? And I know there's the left-wing way of looking at it, right-wing way of looking at it. You can't drink alcohol in uniform. I get the pros and cons. I think, again, we deserve a night off. I think we have a night to be proud of our Class A uniform. I'm okay if somebody's having an adult beverage, as long as they're acting appropriately. On this particular night of our our banquet, we're downtown at a venue at a hotel, and as we were leaving that night, people were talking to us, actually thanking us for our service. We were holding doors while we were waiting. We were waiting for Ubers and cabs to show up, and it was icy and snowy, so there was quite a line waiting at the hotel entrance, and guests to the hotel were coming back from wherever they were that night. And there was just a lot of intermingling going on, and the remarks and comments we got from people were so favorable, thanking us for our service and for everything we do, and we were extending the courtesies back to them and holding the door for them and smiling. Now, can you imagine for 1 minute if we were acting like buffoons and falling down and not controlling ourselves or being mean or nasty? Could you imagine what that would do to our professional image? And so it's a good reminder. Good reminder, you're in your uniform, you're having a great time, being so proud, which we should be, to be a firefighter. Let's just act appropriately and act like a professional. We did have another thing I just jotted down. I made notes for the show over the weekend, and today something came up from our banquet that I'll share with you. We make mistakes like anybody else, and it's called paying attention to the details. If you're handing out certificates, if you're handing out plaques, please make sure you double and triple check things. If you're not a good speller, please give it to someone that can spell. Please give it to someone to review the years of service. Or importantly here is names. Make sure you're spelling names correctly. For example, if you have a member named Newman, is it N-E-W or N-E-U? If someone's last name ends with Son, is it S-O-N or S-E-N? You get the idea, right? Well, we had a very minor instance that could cause a controversy. It didn't. We got out ahead of it a little bit, but people get offended today for good reason. We made a mistake. We used a template for a little simple certificate of achievement. We give them out to members along with a service bar every 5 years of service, and we give them a very nice certificate that recognizes their contributions, and it says his contributions or her contributions. And we accidentally had his contributions on a certificate for one of our female members who didn't make a big deal about it at all. She totally understands it was an innocent oversight. She was so proud of the certificate. It got posted. Other people saw it. There were some comments made about, hey, we should at Snyder be recognized. It's 2018 and we have females in the fire service. And they're absolutely right. It's egg on our face. We responded, and I'll take responsibility for it. It was a steering committee error. And the same mistake has been made completely opposite, where we've had certificates that were for male members that the template last used was for a female member. So the male firefighter had a template that says thanking her for the service provided. So you get the idea. It's an innocent mistake, but our member was not upset, understood it was just a simple oversight. We're already correcting it and making a new one. However, it could be interpreted the wrong way, so it's called dotting the I's and crossing the T's, isn't it? Let's pay attention to the details. It reminds me of a story of a firefighter I know who received an award from the city leaders for recognition for his contributions in the successful resuscitation of a recruit who collapsed and went into cardiac arrest, and the city recognized this firefighter's contributions in the successful resuscitation of the recruit, and the certificate thanked the firefighter for their service and recent retirement from the fire department. And it was nothing to do with retirement, but you can see what happened. They used a template that they use for retirements, they didn't change the wording around it all to recognize that it was for a life-saving endeavor by this firefighter. And you know what's the worst thing? They didn't fix it. All right, mistakes happen. We made a mistake. We're fixing it. And this case, there was no correction made, and the firefighter still has that certificate thanking them for their retirement, and they're still on the job. So please, let's just pay attention to the details, work together, cross T's, dot I's, make sure things like that doesn't happen. So, and like all departments, too, you know, our installation banquet, sometimes, not always, we give firefighters and the guests a small gift or a token of appreciation for attending the banquet. I'm sure you maybe do that, right? We've given out traditional things, wine glasses, notepads, pens, any sort of trinket with your fire department name on it, just as a thank you to guests for coming to your banquet. We don't always do it. We don't do it every year. For many years we didn't do anything, but this year one of our members took it upon himself to design a Snyder Fire Department challenge coin. Now, there's nothing new about this. They've been around for a long time. But this firefighter, and I'll name him, his name's firefighter Michael Bastido, I watched him put in countless hours. He worked extremely hard on many different designs, and he got feedback from people before he finally settled on a final version. Then he got an idea. He was just going to offer it for sale to our members. He just thought it would be a neat thing to do, and we did too. We put a sign-up sheet. Anyone wants to order these. But then he came to our steering committee in charge of our banquet, and came up with this idea. Hey, why don't we give these out as an installation dinner gift and see what people think? So our steering committee thought about it for a bit, and they weren't that expensive. They really weren't. So we decided, you know what? That's a pretty cool idea. So as guests arrived at our installation banquet, they were presented with a challenge coin from the Snyder Fire Department. And now some people were like, what am I going to do with this? For the most part, that was a pretty cool reaction. Again, some people are like, you know what am I going to do with this? It's going to collect dust. But you know what? I was afraid that maybe more didn't, and I was wrong, because countless people really found it to be a cool token and a source of pride. I got emails. We've received Facebook messages from people wanting to get one who weren't at the banquet, or even firefighters from other departments maybe who want one. And some people got to the dinner really early because the weather conditions weren't bad, so the challenge coins weren't placed out yet for them. So they came running to say, hey, I didn't get one. It was a really, really cool to see the impact that this little challenge coin had. And by far, it far exceeded my expectations, and people were very happy with getting that coin. And for those wondering, I know challenge coins have been around for a long time. It's a small coin. It's a medallion. It bears the insignia of the organization or the emblem, and it's carried traditionally by the members. That's why you usually don't sell them. Usually you got to exchange them with other firefighters, or they're very popular in the military with other military members. And traditionally they've been given to prove membership. When challenged to prove your membership, they enhance morale. In practice, they're usually presented by a unit, by unit commanders maybe, in recognition of a special achievement. By a member of that unit. They're exchanged in recognition of membership in a certain organization. They're exchanged in recognition of visits to an organization, and they really do have a pretty cool history for anyone that wants to look that up. It's a really history not even understood all that well. Depending on what story you want to believe, they date back to the time of the Roman army. Roman Empire rewarded soldiers by presenting them with coins to recognize their achievements, and other stories have their origins around the time of World War I. Still others have stories that the coins came from World War II, and even other stories that they came out of the Vietnam War. But nonetheless, they serve as a source of unit pride, and they definitely can be used to pay honor to departments, to members, or as a reward for some type of outstanding service. Heck, even presidents have collected them. And it's known President Clinton had several racks of challenge coins, which were given to him by service members. He had them on these racks on the credenza behind his desk in the Oval Office. I think they're currently on display at his library. Actually, I've also heard they appear in the background of his official portrait, which hangs in the White House. President George W. Bush, he received challenge coins from a Marine unit. So they definitely are a source of pride, and they've been around for a long time. And I know some probably think they're just a dust collector, but to others, they definitely are a source of pride. They symbolize the strong bonds of brotherhood and sisterhood that are within our departments and within our great fire service. And, one other thing that I reminded our members Saturday, they're called a challenge coin for a reason, because you can be challenged to produce it by another firefighter, and if you fail to produce it, you're obligated to buy the challenger a drink. But if you do produce it, then the drink is on the challenger. So that's kind of the little history and tidbit on challenge coins. But check out the Snyder Fire Department Facebook page. You'll see pictures from our banquet and also a picture of the challenge coin that Mike Bastido, our firefighter Mike Bastido, designed, and he did a really good job with it. So. But again, I know many of you already had your installation banquets back in January or February. I know there's still departments doing them in April here, or maybe even into May. So I just want to wish everyone the best who's being installed or going to be installed soon, or maybe just was installed. I'd like to congratulate you, wish you all the best, and hope for a great, great year ahead. Hey, folks, again, this is the Professional Volunteer Fire Department on Fire Engineering Talk Radio. If you'd like to call in tonight, the number 760-454-8852. And what other housekeeping notes do I got? What else is going on in our great volunteer fire service? So much. One of the big issues in volunteer fire departments is money and having the funds, right, to do the job required. Who else hosts fundraisers and pancake breakfasts and stands out in a road with a boot trying to collect money just to get the job done? Well, unfortunately, volunteer fire departments have to rely on that time and time again. So Globe is trying to do something about it to help out. That's Globe Gear, the company that makes fire gear. They've been donating since 2012 turnout gear to needy volunteer fire departments. And this year, again, Globe is going to donate a total of 52 sets of gear to 13 all-volunteer or mostly volunteer fire departments. Each department will receive 4 sets of new turnout gear from Globe. I think that's pretty cool. I think there's a lot of departments out there that could probably use that. There's some criteria. They must be all volunteer or mostly over 50% volunteer, must serve a population of 25,000 or less, must be located in the U.S. or Canada, and there's a few other stipulations. Check it out. Easiest way to do it, go on Google and just type in Globe Gear Giveaway. There's also a link off the National Volunteer Fire Council website, which is at nvfc.org. They have a search bar. You can type Globe Gear Giveaway in there and see about maybe how you could get in the running for one of these sets of 52 sets that they're going to give away to 13 volunteer departments. Each department gets about 4 sets. Not bad at all. So please check that out, because we know many volunteer departments are struggling to provide the gear and equipment necessary just to do the job. Now, the application period for that is up on June 1st, so you do have some time, and you can check that out. This has been going on since 2012, so thanks to Globe for doing that. That's really a neat little program. Not hard to apply either. Not hard to apply. So again, Globe Gear Giveaway, you can Google that. Go on National Volunteer Fire Council website at nvfc.org. Put it in the search bar as well, and you'll be led to that. And speaking of the National Volunteer Fire Council, that's a great organization. We've talked about it before. Their president, Chief Quinn, has been on the show before. A lot of benefits that they offer volunteer fire departments for relatively next to nothing. Very small cost, if you remember. Well, they have a training summit every year in June. That's coming up. It's going to be June 1st and 2nd in Concord, North Carolina. It's open to all volunteer firefighters, EMTs, department leadership, just anyone from the fire departments across the U.S. Again, there's information on their website at nvfc.org. It's a 2-day event. There'll be 12 classroom sessions. There's a great networking opportunity as well. There's vendors on scene. It's a great experience. I have presented there the last 2 years. I will not be there this year, but I have been there the last 2 years. I could tell you it's one of my favorite events. Just some great people there every year. Great networking opportunity, great classes, and just a great group of people at the National Volunteer Fire Council. They do so much for the volunteer fire service, and it's only $75 to register. It includes lunches, like I said, the networking social event. Check it out. Check it out if at all possible, June 1st through 2nd in Concord, North Carolina. It'll be worth your while. And joining the National Volunteer Fire Council is worth your while as well, folks. It really is. Really is. Some other things that have come across my desk related to our great fire service is there's an awareness campaign, a safety stand down for 2018, and this year they do it every year, a safety stand down, and they have different themes. I don't know if you're aware of it, but this year the stand down theme for 2018 focuses on firefighter medical programs and physical examinations. This campaign will take place June 17th to the 23rd. The slogan is "Be aware, get checked." It focuses on understanding and implementing and monitoring comprehensive annual medical and physical exams for firefighters, and it has roadmaps to firefighter health and wellness success. So something to think about. You can get some information on that also through the National Volunteer Fire Council. There's a website, safetystandown.org. Again, www.safetystandown.org. This is done in conjunction with the Fire Council, National Volunteer Fire Council, and the International Associations of Fire Chiefs. Because again, we know firefighters are facing a ton of health risks, right? It's no secret. I mean, think about what it's doing to our recruitment efforts when people hear about our health risks associated with heart disease, cancer, diabetes, post-traumatic stress, right? Well, early detection is something we can offer our firefighters. Early detection through annual medical evaluations and physicals. They save lives. In my presentation alone, I have several examples that I talk about of people who have had life-altering medical findings on their fire department physical that help them be healthy and successful today, that if they didn't have that exam, they could have been in a world of hurt and may not even be with us any longer. So this safety stand down, be aware, get checked, is a great opportunity for awareness of this, and it's something that we can publicize on our websites and put up in our firehouse, maybe talk about it on a drill night, because we have a responsibility to do this for our members, and we have a responsibility personally, too, to be fit and ready to answer the call. So the safety stand down this year is going to provide tools to maybe make that happen, and hopefully in the long run, reduce line of duty deaths. So all agencies, volunteer and paid, across the country are encouraged to do this program, to suspend all non-emergency activities during the week of the 17th to 23rd so they can focus on training and education related to the theme, be aware and get checked. And a lot of information available at safetystandown.org, which is the official website of the Stand Down event, which again will run from June 17th to the 23rd, and just something to maybe take a look at and see where you can get your company, your department involved. Speaking of health and wellness, I harp on this quite a bit on the show. Cancer is just the nasty C word in the fire service. It's an epidemic. Definitely one of the most dangerous threats that we face as firefighters. It doesn't discriminate between paid and volunteer. And just like with every other health concern we just talked about, the studies are showing that firefighters at an increased risk for so many types of cancer when you compare it to the general population. The toxins, the carcinogens that we're exposed to is understood now better than ever, and it's scarier than ever as well. Well, again, there's a great resource out there. Again, it's available through the National Volunteer Fire Council, and It's the best practices for preventing firefighter cancer, a great resource to maybe help reduce this alarming cancer rate that is ravaging the fire service. Something else, again, you can check out on the National Volunteer Fire Council website, nvfc.org, as the fire service organization's best practices for preventing firefighter cancer. Just a great resource that National Volunteer Fire Council is. And for those who don't know, in March this year, both the House and the Senate passed the Consolidated Appropriations Act of 2018. What does that mean, Merrill? What are you boring me with that? Because that's the act that provides funding for the federal agencies that have programs that directly assist local fire, EMS, and rescue agencies, and funds the Assistance to Firefighters grant and the SAFER grant, the Staffing for Adequate Fire and Emergency Response. So those programs are funded. I believe they each went up a little bit. So that's pretty good. I think it's the second time in the last 3 years that Congress has increased funding for the Assistance to Firefighters grant and the Staffing for Adequate Fire and Emergency Response grant. So that is good news. And if anyone would like some information on how to apply for these, there's information again on the National Volunteer Fire Council website. I believe the grant period opened back in March 26th. It does close at the end of April, next week actually. I think it's the 27th. So there's still time, but time is running a little short. One of the neat things with the grant too, we all could use new members, right? We all need more members, and there's a great campaign that is funded through the SAFER grant, Make Me a Firefighter, and it's a grant that can help a department recruit members, talk about benefits of being a member, help with marketing, help with even clothing and duty uniforms, and provide those necessary physical exams. Make some modifications to your fire station. A lot of things that a SAFER grant can do for your department. Recruit members, take care of the fire station, provide uniforms, provide the necessary equipment, tuition assistance. There is a lot of things that you can use a SAFER grant for, and there's a lot of resources that can help you apply for that grant. And the National Volunteer Fire Council can offer many ideas on how to help with that as well. And, I know I've been talking so much about the National Volunteer Fire Council, but honestly, they just help in so many areas, so many benefits. Definitely a website along with fire engineering that you should be checking. And last month and several months, in the last several radio shows that we've done, we've talked about leadership. National Volunteer Fire Council even offers help with fire company leadership. We all know, and we've talked about it often on this show, that becoming a company officer can be overwhelming. So again, National Volunteer Fire Council, they developed an online course, one of the many online courses they offer, which can help the new company officer navigate and understand the requirements and responsibilities of their office. It's 8 modules that provide key considerations and information in areas of leadership and communications and ethics and training evolutions and preparing and incident size up and even health and wellness. There's so much. Free for members for a limited time. There's a virtual classroom that does that you take for this training. And again, talked a lot about leadership. We all know that the volunteer fire service is craving good leadership. Matter of fact, I'm soon to release a presentation. I'm going to offer officer development and leadership success in the volunteer firehouse. I was reluctant to do it at first because there are so many books and so many shows and so many snippets on leadership. But talking to you out there, talking to the volunteer fire service world, and talking to so many of you and getting emails from so many of you, there's a very real need for it. And just like with my professional presentation, I'm not expressing to have all the answers at all, but I can tell you what I've learned. I can pass on examples of successes that I've heard about or maybe experienced, and I can share with you and hopefully hear from you other areas of failure and success that we can incorporate into a presentation that would be there to help all volunteer fire officers develop into good leaders. And I will have that available by summer to roll out to departments if interested. So, but again, National Volunteer Fire Council put this beautiful little course together, series of modules, 8 modules available in a virtual classroom to help all company officers become even better, to become better leaders. So those are some of the news items that came across my desk. Of course, again, a lot of them from the National Volunteer Fire Council, which is one of the websites that maybe you can set up to get notifications from, just like you might be doing from fire engineering and some of the other fire service vendors out there, or some of the other fire service leaders out there, I should say. And if you're not, why not? Why aren't you? Part of being professional is staying on top of things, being well-versed with what's going on, not just in your neck of the woods, which you should be attending the chief meetings, the county meetings, the different organizational meetings, if you're an officer. But if you're a firefighter, at least pay attention to what's going on in your area and in the fire service world. It's part of being a professional. It's part of knowing what's going on is being professional. Part of being professional is knowing what's going on. So let's get together and make sure we're checking out all those great resources out there. And maybe you are, which is great. Maybe what I just explained to you and went over, which is just a very small portion of what's come across my desk in the last month, maybe you are already aware of that. Great. Share it. Share it with your fellow members. Do you have a board where you're posting this information for your officers? Are you getting your department to become a member of the different fire service organizations? Are you getting Fire Engineering Magazine for your officers, if not your entire membership? The magazine subscriptions are not that expensive anymore. Lay them on the table in your club room. Put them in your firehouse. Post articles on the board. Keep your people informed, because an informed firefighter is a professional firefighter as well. Now, what else is going on? A lot, people. If you'd like to call in, please give me a call at 760-454-8852. A reminder, this is Fire Engineering Blog Talk Radio. The Professional Volunteer Fire Department is the name of the show, and I am Tom Merrill, and I would love to hear from you. Would love to hear from all of you out there regarding your volunteer fire service experience. But I have been on the road a lot sharing the professional message. I was just in Ohio last week with the great folks in the Winona area, at the Winona and Hanoverton area, actually. A couple of weeks before that, I was at the Pinsky Fire and EMS Law and Management Conference at the Turning Stone Resort, which is just east of Syracuse, New York. What a wonderful time that was. Many of you know Chief Pinsky, Chief Brad Pinsky. He's the co-host of the popular fire engineering radio show, Fire Service Court Radio. He does that with Kurt Verone, John Murphy, Chip Comstock. They examine and discuss legal issues in the fire service. It's a great show. Definitely give that a listen. There's probably a lot of great information you can glean from that show. If you haven't added it to your list, please do so. But great time, met some great people, fantastic networking at both of those venues that I was just at. Got many others I'll be doing in the weeks after FDIC next week. Again, as I say every week, love doing these presentations. I meet so many phenomenal people. Realize there's so many similarities in our departments. Realize that we all have the same types of people. Use the expression, and you've heard it before, same circus, different clowns. But you know what? It can also be a good thing, because just like a circus can be a source of fun and entertain people and make people happy, so can your volunteer fire department. It doesn't always have to be bad. There's so much good. Let's focus on all the good that there is. There's, for every bad person, there's so many good people. Now, some people say, Tom, what's your presentation about? What are you talking about? And it's the same as the premise of this show, people. That being considered a professional firefighter really, to me, has nothing to do with earning that paycheck. Professional firefighter has everything to do with delivering competent, compassionate service. It has to do with training hard. It has to do with being prepared, no matter what role you play in your volunteer department. And we know there's a lot of roles that we have in our departments, but no matter what role it is, that you're taking care of your customers, taking care of your members. So in my presentation, I have 12 building blocks I like to outline on how you can build a professional foundation in your department. If you're interested in having me bring it out your way, please, I'd love to talk to you about it. Reach out to me. Again, Professional Volunteer Fire Department Facebook page, give it a like. You can email me at tamerrill63@aol.com. You can reach me on Twitter. I'm pretty easy to find. My own personal Facebook page, Tom Merrill. So please just give it a like. And again, next up is my presentation next week at FDIC, which runs all next week in Indianapolis. And love to see you. So again, if you're out at any of the networking events or anything like that, please feel free to stop me and say hi and talk to me. And because I just love meeting firefighters. It's what does Chief Lasky call it? FDIC is the Disney World for firefighters, and it is. It is. If you're lucky enough to go, hopefully we'll see you there. If not, maybe you can make plans to get there in next year, because once you go once, you're going to want to continue going back. And the people I go with from my department are just as fired up every year to go back as they were the first time as well. And, speaking of FDIC, one other thing I wanted to talk to you about and get your opinion on, and again, even if you hear this a week from now, feel free to write me and let me know what you do. But a lot of times I see people taking notes at these seminars, and I'm just curious, what's your trick for keeping those notes? What do you do with those notes after you take them? I see people taking notes at the seminars, and then I wonder, do they simply stuff them in a drawer somewhere? Is there a drawer that they open up and all these notes fall on the floor? Do they throw them out afterwards? Do they lose them and never see them again? And I just wonder, because I'm searching for the answer, and I finally, a couple of years ago, came up with a system that works for me that I'll share with you. So I, like most of you, take a little notebook to the classes I go to, whether it's at FDIC or anywhere. If I go to a local seminar or anywhere else at a presentation that I go to, I'll take my little notebook, and I'm not the neatest writer, but, usually you got to write pretty fast. Now, the newer generation, I do see some people typing as the presenter's giving them information. I can't do that. I'm old school. I still write the notes. But here's what I've done the last few years that works for me. Shortly after, sometimes after FDIC, it's on the plane ride on the way home. Sometimes it's even back at my hotel room at night if nothing's going on. I'll recopy my notes onto my laptop. And that does two things. Number one, it allows me to read them a second time, which then reinforces muscle memory for remembering some of the things that were taught. Number two, if I do it while I'm at the conference still, if something didn't make sense, I'll seek that instructor out later in the week to get some clarification. And actually, it does three things, because the other thing it allows me to do, it allows me to organize them in a folder on my laptop so that I can retrieve from time to time. And sometimes I'll do that. I'll pop them open when I'm sitting on my laptop somewhere and pick a couple out to review and read over. And that's what I do with them. And I'm just wondering if there's any other ideas for what people do, because it'd be a shame if you just spent all that time writing them down and never reviewed them, or worse, even lost them. So I like to retype them, put them into categories, put them in other folders and subfolders in the folder, and like I said, the one thing with these seminars and that, and I said it earlier, you can never learn enough. And I hope you're staying on top of things in the fire service. You're listening to what people are talking about, seeing what the trends are, seeing what the challenges are, and instead of just bitching, are you helping to fix it? Are you working to fix it? And continue training, because whether you have 5 minutes, 5 months, 5 years, 35 years in the fire service, you can never trade enough. I've always been leery of the firefighter who says, I've been doing it 15, 20 years now, I don't need to go to that training drill. Well, I've been doing it 35 years, and I still go to training drill almost every week, because I'm still learning, and I'm still out there reading and trying to stay on top of things. And I'm no fire service major player like some of the fire engineering talk radio hosts are, but I can tell you every one of them that is would reiterate what I just said. If you're going to be in this fire service, a volunteer fire service especially, that can kill you, you owe it to yourself. And if not doing it for yourself, do it for your family. Train hard. Stay on top of what's going on. It's the professional thing to do. Any thoughts on that? Again, call 760-454-8852. So we had an issue in my firehouse a couple of weeks ago that brought attention to something else I wanted to talk to you about tonight, something else I jotted down and said, when the time is right, I'm going to talk about this on my show. I've covered it a little bit in the past. I think we did even talk about it last week in last month when we reviewed Hale Moore's leadership book. And Hale Moore would talk about how soldiers would get killed and other soldiers would have to step up and be ready to take over that soldier's position, especially if they were a leader of sort. But so we had this little issue a couple of weeks ago in my volunteer firehouse, and that had to do with we needed a new secretary. We had a secretary that served for 15 years, did a great job, and decided he's going to step down. He's in his 70s now and has other things he wanted to do. So he stepped down after 15 years or so of doing a very competent job, and we had a very energetic, newer firefighter. He's been in a few years. Decide I'll take it over, which is great. And come January, he started doing the minutes and plugging away at things, and everything was going fine until, as I mentioned, we had our chief's elections back in early April, and that's a special election, and the bylaws simply say that they need to have a special notice mailed out. And no one told the new secretary that it was his job to do it. So the time came and went where that special meeting notice was supposed to be mailed out. And everything was fine. We got it all solved and taken care of. But what does that highlight? It highlights the need for good succession planning, passing on the knowledge that one officer might have regarding the duties, the responsibilities with holding that office, making sure we pass them on to the new person coming in. Now, this is not a fancy topic. It's not a cool fire tactic, but boy, can it certainly be a problem in our volunteer firehouses, can it? Happened to us. Not a huge deal, but there's certain things that if we don't pass them on, it can become a big deal. It can result in audits not being done, which can lead to financial problems in firehouses. Can result in maybe ladder testing not being done or hose testing not being done properly. So what am I talking about here? Really, I'm talking about having plans in place to ensure there's a smooth transfer of office. And it's not just the firematic side. As I said here, it definitely can be on both sides, administrative as well, just like it was with us. So I know in a lot of places, here's what happens, right? We throw someone in the office. Congratulations, you're now the secretary. Now what? Now, if they have some initiative, they have some drive, okay, they might be able to mutter through and figure things out on their own. At least on the firematic side, in most cases, there's some time in the trenches, not always. There's some time in the trenches where a lieutenant serves as a lieutenant before becoming a captain, before becoming assistant chief, if that's how it is in your department. That's great. Gives you some time to learn how to do some of the things. But let's look at the administrative side, right? First of all, who wants the job? Right? How many times have you heard we've got an opening for treasurer? Who wants treasurer? And you look out at the room and everyone's looking at the floor. They're looking at their phone, right? So who do we nominate? Somebody not there to decline the nomination, right? Or they ask so many times, come on, someone's got to do this office. Finally, someone raises their hand and says, okay, I'll do it. But do they know what to do? And hopefully, the previous officer is there to help and offer guidance. That's the best way, right? And a lot of times they might not be. But if possible, if the previous person's there to help, maybe they knew they were going to leave in a year, so they spent a year grooming somebody. You know, that's if you're lucky enough to do that, if you're lucky enough to find someone to groom, that's great. So you can spend some time preparing them. So when the time comes, they're maybe a little better off than if they just stepped into the office cold turkey. You know, but that's great if you can do it. What if the person leaving office decides a day or two before the nomination that they don't want to do it? That's when they decided. Or, God forbid, they die or pass away while holding office. Or they get a job transfer and they got to leave soon. Or even worse, what if the person being groomed gets that job transfer or died or had a change of heart? And this never happens in the volunteer fire service, does it? What if it's a contentious election, somebody loses, and they're not going to help the new officer take over? Maybe sometimes they pack up the necessary things that are needed for the office and storm out with it, never coming back to the firehouse. That never happens, does it? Unfortunately, it does. So that's why it's so important to have a good succession management plan in place. Now, if you're able to groom someone, that's great. But that's not always the case. So another idea I like to talk about is you got to have a good playbook. You got to have a good playbook that outlines what needs to be done, which your bylaws probably do that. But more importantly, in addition to what needs to be done, how to do it. They can be step-by-step directions. We're not talking volumes that are as long as War and Peace. We're talking just little simple how-tos for the different offices, things that need to be done, and how to do it. I've used the example before. I was secretary of our company for a couple of years back before becoming an assistant chief in the mid-'90s. Somebody came to me once asking how to fill out or needed their New York State exemption certificate. I had no idea how to do the paperwork. Took me a while to figure it out, tracking down some former secretaries. Once I found out how to do it, I typed it out. You heard that right? Typed it out. That how-to guide is still in the drawer of the secretary's office, helping anyone else that needs to fill out the paperwork for New York State exemption certificates. But we don't have a how-to book for every other job for secretary, so that's why this was missed, the mailing for the meeting. But you get the idea, don't you? A how-to book, a playbook on what's required for the job. You know what else is kind of neat? That book can have a calendar in it. So whatever the office is, even treasurer or secretary, hey, in September is when we do our audit. Here's who you call for the audit. Here's the forms required for the audit. On the firematic side, hey, every August we get our air packs tested. Here's the number of the call. We do our ladder testing on this month. You can even put directions on how to maintain personnel management records if you're using some sort of software, how to get into the software, right? And then the only thing I recommend with this book, have a master copy on your server so no one can delete it. No one can pout and run off with the master copy. Have a master copy or several master copies, and make sure when you update one, you update the other as well. But, you know, it's important to have a master copy at the firehouse. So I know back in the day, everyone used to take records home. I remember our firehouse was so small, we didn't have a lot of storage. So the hose test records or ladder records, whatever officer was in charge of those records, they would go home and take those records with them. And hopefully, in most cases, they brought them back when they weren't in that office anymore. But you can see the problem that would happen if all of a sudden the officer decided not to come back anymore. So good to have a playbook. And start now, no matter what office you are in. Put your page together. Start that book now. Take ownership and responsibility for your office. And you can also use these playbooks for operations. You know, pardon me for this delay there. My department is getting toned out now for a standby. A neighboring department has a fire, so something's going on. Interesting. But I'm going to stay with you for a bit because I have so many other things I want to talk about. These playbooks, you can also put them together for operation playbooks, to be a template for what to do on operations and empower your firefighters to make decisions so they don't have to be spoon-fed absolutely everything. They can serve as templates for training drills and ensures members are being taught one standard. You know, sometimes we have a lieutenant or an officer teach one way. 6 months later, there's another officer teaching it a completely different way, and that can lead to dysfunction on the fire ground. Now, there's nothing wrong with learning different ways to do things, but don't you agree one standard should kind of be embraced? For example, apparatus positioning. You know, you teach your apparatus how to maybe park at a bread and butter fire, where you want people parked. The standard is this way. Okay, that's fine, and that's going to work 90% of the time. However, we can change it for compelling reasons, so we're going to practice other ways, but we have this playbook which shows you the standard way, which we're going to teach, but then the alternate ways as well. And it applies to so many things. Think about raising ladders. How many different ways are there to raise a ladder? Maybe the department should adopt a standard way so everyone's on the same page, so we're not doing it two different ways at the same time, and then practice the alternate ways as well, right? Could do that with response orders. You know, what truck do you want to take? I don't know. We took engine 2 last night. We'll take engine 1 tonight. Is there anyone around to drive engine 1? No? Okay, we'll take rescue 5 then. No. Have a playbook which spells out your response order. Maybe routes to the call if possible. Initial fire attack playbook rules. So does the chief need to tell the incoming engine that they need to stretch the front bumper line for a car fire, if that's the line you've designated for the majority of your car fires, shouldn't the chief just be sizing up the scene and the firefighters getting off the rig know what hose they're going to deploy? Now, compelling reason, if they need to change it, of course they can change it up a little bit. It's like calling an audible. It's like calling an audible in a football game, right? There's plays that are designated, but we might have to call an audible. That's you can't call an audible if you don't have a playbook to begin with, right? Right? So, you know what else some people... Oh, here's a good one. How about this for a playbook? Can we have a playbook rule or a standard for that second call? When a second call comes in, you're on that first call, and why do we lose our mind sometimes when we get 2 calls at once? Why do sometimes we send 5 times as much apparatus as we would normally for that second call if that was the only call? Why do sometimes we lose our mind and run from the first call to the second call, and if there was a patient or somebody at the first call, we're abandoning them? I've seen that happen before, right? Why do we lose our mind and not act professional when a second call comes in? I never really understood that. But, hey, just things to think about. Have a good playbook. Now, some people put writing assignments in playbooks, and that's interesting. I think that's a great concept. We have not been able to make that work in my department. I would love to hear from people on this. Again, if you want to call in on it, 760-454-8852. But writing assignments where if somebody gets on a rig, based on where they're sitting, they're assigned a certain task. Nozzle, forcible entry, backup. Great idea. And the companies that do it, it works phenomenally for them. It works phenomenally for them. But I want to hear how it works if the rig doesn't have a full crew. Sometimes we roll our volunteer fire apparatus with 2 people instead of 4, maybe 3 people instead of 5. Well, what happens with those empty seats? Or what if one of those seats is occupied by maybe someone not proficient in that job? How do we ensure that the person in that seat is proficient? I can see it probably working well for those volunteer departments that run crew nights and crew duties. But what about for people coming from home? You might not know who's showing up. What about departments where people, and this is not unheard of, and before we criticize and say you shouldn't do it, there's areas where this is very much necessary due to jurisdictional boundaries. But what if firefighters go to the scene directly in their car? How do writing assignments work for them? I'd like to know more because I'm very intrigued by the writing assignments because I know they work and I know people love it and have success with it. But these are some of the questions I have and would kind of like to talk to people about. Maybe I'll see you in Indy and we can talk about it some more. So I'd be interested to hear what you think about with that. So, hey, had another interesting thing happen that directly impacts our professional reputation, and that is how we act driving our own personal vehicle. We know people are never going to drive always the way we would like them to, especially when we're in fire vehicles, right? They slam their brakes on, they don't pull over, and we know we have to teach our people and ourselves to be restrained and not lean out windows and get angry and yell and scream because, again, we're impacting our fire department reputation. But even in our own personal vehicle, in most cases, we have lights or license plates or something identifying us as a volunteer firefighter. In a lot of cases, we have just like challenge coin represents, shows that we belong to a fire department proudly. Well, so many times the vehicle sticker does as well. So I got to share a story with you. Last week, I leave my house to go to a fire call, and I'm going to the firehouse, and I turn out onto a main street from my side street, and traffic is being restricted from 2 lanes to 1 lane. So I turn into the left lane, which is open. The right lane is being restricted. And sure enough, a car comes zipping along the right lane. They're going to wait to the last second before merging left, only if we let them in. You've seen it, right? It can be aggravating, whatever. People do that all the time, right? So I slow down, but I still have 1 car in front of me. That car in front of me refuses to let the car in the right lane in. The car in the right lane speeds up. The car in front of me speeds up. The car in the right lane slows down. The car in front of me slows down. And I'm thinking, oh, come on, just let this person in. I know the person in the right lane was acting kind of goofy and not doing things very courteous. They were trying to just zoom in at the last minute and avoid the construction delay. But I'm thinking, just let this person in. Oh, my gosh, they won't let them in. And finally, the car gave up in the right lane, and the car in front of me sped up. So then the car in the right lane merged in front of me. I let him in. Well, when we got to the next traffic signal, the road got wide again, so everyone could get us into their own lane. And I'm still shaking my head that the person in front of me wouldn't let the car in from the right lane. And I look up, and what do I see on the back of the car in front of me? A fire department sticker. I was like, oh, my gosh. It was one of our own firefighters going to the same call I was that was playing this cat and mouse game with the car in the right lane. So when we got to the firehouse, first thing the firefighter said to me when he got out of his car is, did you see that idiot trying to zoom in at the last minute? And I politely explained, yes, I did, but do you realize that idiot saw your sticker, and directly now that sticker and the actions by our firefighter directly impacted that driver's image of our volunteer fire department. Right or wrong, that's exactly what happened. So it's just something to think about. We have to hold ourselves to a higher standard. We have to act like a professional at all times. Not always easy, is it? Not always easy. But that image can be damaged, and it can take a lot of work to undo the damage. You could have 100 years of great service to your community, but one bad mistake can tarnish that image, and I think you would agree with that, right? Right. Folks, I've been talking for an hour now on some of the issues in our volunteer fire service. And again, one last chance. If you want to call in, feel free to call at 760-454-8852. I'm going to cut it short because I'm going to run off to this fire that is happening in my town right now. But I do have one other thing I want to cover quickly, and that is the concept here of this term professional. It's the premise of my show. It's the premise of my presentation, my articles. It's my passion. And that's that professionalism. And acting like a professional is something we should all strive to do in everything. We're living in a very, very nasty, mean-spirited world right now. And I think you'd agree with me. And there are some out there who even take exception to my premise that professional volunteer firefighters exist. Insults have been hurled our way. Some are calling us hobbyists, wannabes. Unfortunately, they think I'm attempting to demean or make light of the paid career firefighters. And folks, nothing could be further from the truth. I am simply highlighting what defines professionalism and trying to show how all of us can live up to what's expected of professional service and professional behavior in anything at all that we do. I talk about professional meaning one who undertakes work that requires special skills or special training. I talk about how a professional is one who showcases that special skill and that training or does their job well. A professional is one who exhibits friendly, personable behavior. A professional is someone who treats people nicely, who has integrity, and embraces teamwork, and in our case, the brotherhood and sisterhood of the fire service. One who looks to uphold the stellar reputation of their profession. That's what I talk about when I use that term professional. And it's my only hope that all of us aspire to meet that definition, no matter what it is that we do. As individuals, we'd like that from our interactions with anybody else. Would we not? Isn't that fair? So please understand, that's what this is about. That's all this is about, to do it that way. To those doing it for a career and for pay, hats off to you. I think that's great. It's noble. It's honorable. It's an absolute fantastic profession. And to those of you doing it on a volunteer basis, well, you know what? That's a great profession too. So let us all remember what it takes to uphold that professional image of a professional firefighter. And let's work together to continue earning that title in everything that we do. For the term professional is not automatically assigned by simply becoming a firefighter. It's earned, and it continues to be earned every day by how we act, by how we train, and how we perform. That alone is how we should be judged. So please, let's all be professional. Our country is craving friendlier, more amicable times. And one constant in our history has been people looking up to firefighters and expected to be treated in a courteous, respectful manner. You know, just like the people coming in the hotel the other night at our banquet were smiling and expecting us to smile and be courteous to them. Imagine the damage we could do if we didn't respond in a professional, courteous manner. Because those doing things the opposite, treating people, including fellow firefighters, with zero respect, well, that's the exact opposite of what professional is in any profession. So let's not resort to nonsense like that, please. Hey, folks, this has been Fire Engineering Talk Radio, the professional volunteer fire department. And like always, I'd like to end with a shout-out tonight. Talk about a chief by the name of John Edward Hutchinson, who served as the fire chief in his hometown fire department in Greensburg, Pennsylvania, from 1953 until 2016. That is 63 years as the chief of department. He was known as a physical fitness buff, even back in the 70s when maybe physical fitness was not as focused as it is today. He required his volunteer firefighters to participate in aerobic dancing because he wanted them to stay fit. They were called Chief Hutch's Dancing Bears, and he was right there with them, preaching and exhibiting physical fitness. He was the fire chief, as I said, for 63 years. He was an avid runner. He worked out twice a day, 7 days a week, and up until the time he stepped down as chief, he could pretty much do anything else much younger firefighters could do. He was recognized for understanding the importance of people, accepting different groups of people into the department and working with them and molding them into firefighters, and he led his department for 63 years as chief. He joined in 1939, only 48 years after the company was formed. His father, his uncle, his grandfather were in the fire department. He stayed active from the time he joined until being down as chief, only interrupted by his service during World War II as a U.S. Marine. Well, just last night, Chief Hutchinson passed away at the age of 96. I would like to give a shout-out to Chief John Edward Hutchinson of the Greensburg, Pennsylvania Fire Department for his years of service and for 63 years of being a chief officer and working very hard to earn the title and get respect that he so deserved. I hope to see many of you next week at FDIC in Indianapolis. Again, I'd love to see you in my class. If not, feel free. Please reach out to me on Facebook, on Twitter. Give my professional volunteer Facebook page a look and a like. I'll share articles, stories, and quotes with you. And I really want to thank you for listening in tonight. Duty calls. I'm about to respond to my volunteer firehouse to see what's going on with this neighboring fire. My next show will be live from FDIC on Thursday, April 26th. From 1:30 till 2 p.m. I'm slated to talk, and we'll talk more about this great volunteer fire service. Thanks for tuning in, folks. Remember, wherever you happen to be listening, please stay safe. And remember that developing, maintaining, and upholding a professional reputation is the duty and responsibility of all of us as firefighters, paid or volunteer. Thank you very much. God bless. Stay safe.